Greetings, my name is Neosekken, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. In the last episode, we used Officer Meekins' testimony along with some security footage of the special evidence room to determine that ultimately the good men who attacked Officer Meekins inside the special evidence room is not really Detective Goodman at all. But in fact, we have reason to suspect that Jake Marshall might have been the one impersonating Goodman and trying to take evidence out of Goodman's locker before Officer Meekins showed up. So we are going to try to bring him into the trial and try to pin him to the crime that occurred within the special evidence room. On top of that, thanks to some assistance from Lana, we received the SL9 case files, and we learned two things. Number one, Emma was one of the witnesses and victims. Well, not victims, but one of the witnesses of the incident itself. But she didn't know that the SL9 incident and an incident that she is personally familiar with, called the Joe Dark killings, were actually one and the same. And when she learned about this, she kind of freaked out on us and left the courtroom. No idea when she'll be back. But yeah, she didn't take it well at all. And second, one of the actual victims of the Joe Dark killings is called Neil Marshall. Same last name as our one and only Jake Marshall. And if the two are indeed related to each other, and I have no reason to, and I don't really think we have any reason to suspect that they aren't, and if this Neil Marshall was involved with the police department in any capacity, it would explain why the SL9 case and any evidence pertaining to it was kept in the special evidence room, because it was an incident that involved members of the police. So yeah, we're going to try to bring Jake Marshall to the stand and try to tie him to what happened in the special evidence room, like I said. So let's just go ahead and get started. February 24th, 12:14 p.m., District Court, courtroom number 9. The court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lana Skye. Emma didn't come back. Allow me to call the next witness to the stand. The officer in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime. Hello, cowboy. Witness, please state your name and occupation. Me, partner? Oh, I'm just a man, same as you, wandering the trails of civilization. Occasionally helping the elderly cross intersections when needed. Yes, we get it. Oh, I know! You're a patrolman! As for my name, if you listen hard enough, you can hear the howling wind calling it out. To be exact, it's Jake Marshall, Your Honor. Someday, maybe you'll get a witness on the stand that won't be giving you any hassle, Edgeworth. I wouldn't bet it on being anytime soon, though. Howling wind. Never heard Edgeworth described it that way before. I think Officer Meekins better fits the description howling wind myself. Now, Mr. Marshall, let me ask you something. You were in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day the crime took place. Is this correct? According to the papers, partner. What do you mean? My desperado's soul is as boundless as the desert sands. No paper can sum it up. Maybe it's best we get on with this quickly. Please share with us your testimony the day of the crime. In plain old English. How fast must your facial hair grow for you to constantly be shaving it with that knife of yours? My job was to keep a wary eye on that bone orchard. They said I was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Besides, the room's protected by 2 security systems anyway. If I remember right, I was at a street-side saloon at the time it went down. Well, that's funny, Jake, because if that's true, then I'd like an explanation for why your fingerprints were found at the scene of the crime covered in blood at the time of the incident. I'm just an innocent traveling man, so if you're out of ammo, it's time to hit the trail. I got plenty of ammo, my friend. So prepare to get shot multiple times. Can't say I particularly care for your attitude. I can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining. Do not insult Santa Claus's beard. Wait a minute. What do you mean by 2 security systems? I mean the security cameras and the ID card reader. I reckon even a cowpoke like you knows about those. Yes, well, what about the fingerprint-activated locks on the evidence lockers? Fingerprint-activated locks? What kind of newfangled doohickeys are those? So, you don't know about the fingerprint locks, eh? Interesting. He's not being very helpful. Well, why would he be? He's not that good with machines. Or with following orders. Everyone's got their weaknesses, now don't they, Mr. Prosecutor? This one seems like trouble. Okay, Mr. Wright, he's all yours. With pleasure. My job was to keep a wary eye on that bone orchard. Okay, let's just go to this statement and present your fingerprints. Explanation, cowpoke. Step on it. Officer Marshall, doesn't it strike you as odd? That is, you being called in to testify like this. After all, you weren't in the security room at the time of the crime. And yet you dragged me down here. Explain yourself, partner. It's quite simple. You left a very large trail behind at the scene. Or to be exact, a handprint. Listen real good, partner. Like I said, I'm the caretaker of that crypt. I pay my respects. That is, make my rounds about once a month. It's only natural my fingerprint would be in there. I only wish it were, officer. But you see, your fingerprints were covered in blood. Witness! What's the meaning of this? Your blood-stained fingerprints were at the crime scene. The blood was wiped away. However, a luminol test clearly revealed this. Well, Officer Marshall? Seems to me there ain't a person in this room with a head on his shoulders. I take it you have an explanation then, Officer Marshall, about the blood-stained fingerprints. I'm quite curious to hear what you have to say, cowpoke. Very well. You may begin your testimony about your fingerprints, found at the scene of the crime. Blood-stained fingerprints. Like I said, it's only natural for my fingerprints to be in that evidence room. One of them just happened to be at the same place as the blood-stained handprint. The murderer touched the locker where my fingerprint was by chance. The blood-stained and the fingerprint are completely unrelated. Or didn't you know the murderer was wearing gloves? See? I had nothing to do with it. The witness's explanation appears valid, although there's room for doubt. So, I don't think you realize what you just admitted to, Jake. You admitted that the so-called killer's handprint found itself on your locker by pure coincidence. And there's only 2 lockers where we found bloody handprints on. There was gumshoes and some unknown persons. The same one where the little white cloth was sticking out of, as we saw in the security camera footage. So, you've pretty much proven then that that little locker at the end is yours. Well, maybe not proven, but you've kind of admitted to it. Life wouldn't be fun without any doubt, partner. The defense may now cross-examine the witness. This guy's hiding something. I can feel it. Now's my chance to prove it. I don't think I saw any obvious weak spots in there, so I think I'm just gonna keep pressing for now. That's because you... how did you put it? Pay your respects once a month? Yeah, that's right. That and one more thing. That locker happens to be mine. What? What do you mean? I mean what I said. That's the locker I used when I was a detective. The locker I still use. Well, that little white cloth that wasn't in there before the little assault in the special evidence room took place, it showed up right as the good men that fled the scene left it. And if that's your locker and only your fingerprints can open it, again, you're just kind of digging your own grave for me, my friend. All that's in there now, though, is a heap of broken dreams. I see. It'd be strange if my prints weren't all over that locker. Apparently his fingerprint data was never removed from that locker's programming. He must have been using a fingerprint lock all this time without ever knowing it. Okay, I guess it was a good thing for me to press on this. Print had been wiped. Just happened to be in the same place. Okay. So then, what about the bloody handprint? Wasn't mine. It's no mystery. Please explain. My locker is covered with my fingerprints. It just so happened. The murderer touched the locker where my fingerprint was by chance. The chances of that happening are 1,000,000 to 1. On the contrary, one could argue just the opposite. The chances of that not happening are 1,000,000 to 1. Get one thing straight, partner. You ain't gonna get no reward from me with a mere fingerprint. You wanna know why? The blood stain and the fingerprint are completely unrelated. Unrelated? They're as different as night and day. Kinda like cereal and cereal. Interesting comparison. One's got to do with breakfast while the other is a type of murder. He's right. Although seemingly alike, they're totally different. Let's see what homonyms have to do with this. Or didn't you know the murderer was wearing gloves? How do you know that? I may be a loner, but I still do my job. I keep up on the reports. There was a blood stain at the scene, thought to be left by the murderer. That's right. It was found in Detective Gumshoe's locker. However, no fingerprints were detected on that handprint. Oh yeah, I think we tried that too. So that would mean the murderer, wearing gloves, happened to place their hand on top of Officer Marshall's fingerprint. That's the only logical conclusion. Are you starting to get the picture, partner? The picture? This seal of blood in the desert, it's just food for the buzzards. There's only one reality, and that's this. The security tape. So long as my trail isn't in there, you can't say otherwise. Well, I can very much say otherwise, friend. This isn't getting us anywhere, Mr. Wright. Please consider carefully where you're going with this cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. Now then, continue your testimony, Officer Marshall. Too bad it wasn't me in that video, right, partner? I think I need to present the videotape here, but I'm just gonna press just to be sure. What do you mean by that? You want to tie me to this crime, isn't that right, partner? If so, that video is the only direct evidence you have. But that video is next to useless! It's full of blind spots! Blind spots? Places you can't see. The camera's panning back and forth. The floor isn't shown. If someone was familiar with the camera's position, they could leave the room without being caught on tape.
Objection!
We don't have time for your speculations, Mr. Wright. Well, Mr. Wright, if you can show us evidence in this video that indicates Officer Marshall was present, please do so now. Will do. Very well. Allow me to point out your mistake, Officer Marshall. Tread carefully, Mr. Wright, or you might wind up being the one making the mistake. I assure you I'm not. Now then, let's have another look at the video. Show us this incriminating evidence of the witness, Officer Jake Marshall. Okay. Let me just fast forward towards the very end. As you can see, that locker at the very end doesn't have a piece of cloth sticking out of it yet. Our Officer Goodman, Detective Goodman, opens this locker. Okay. There we go. Right here. Bringing our attention back to the security camera is a mistake I'm afraid you'll soon not forget, Officer Marshall. The days are short in Texas, and so are our tempers. Could you sum up what you have to say in 8 words or less? Very well. You can clearly be seen in this video. Exactly 8 words. Not bad, partner. The key lies in a certain locker shown in the video. That locker with the white cloth sticking out. That was the witnesses, I believe. Now then, let's rewind the video a bit. Oh, the white cloth. It's gone. What's the meaning of this, Officer Marshall? When the crime took place, the white cloth wasn't there. Then, it suddenly appeared. The only one explanation. Officer Marshall, you were in the evidence room at the time of the crime. What's more, you opened your locker when the camera was turned away. Order! Order! Hold your horses! Sorry, partner. Well, you got the wrong man. No, I don't. So what if my locker was opened? That doesn't mean I'm the one who opened it. The murderer needed to hide something, so he opened a locker and stuck it in. It's not my fault he happened to choose mine. I don't think you understand what the problem is here, Jake. Why is everyone staring at me like I'm a wanted man? Well, you are a desperado, aren't you? This guy isn't just playing dumb. He really doesn't know. I hate to rain on your parade, but you're the only person who can open that particular locker. Oh yeah? I call your bluff. You say open that locker. Now prove it! Okay. Fingerprint sensor? We talked about this earlier today. The lockers can only be opened by the detectives they belong to. What kind of crazy talk is this? Well, Detective Gumshoe did mention something about this. In any case, locks are not... There are some people in the force that don't know about the locks. Yes, we know. So, Sheriff, what do you have to say in 8 words or less? I only got 1 word for you, partner. No! Thank you for digging your grave for me, patrolman. Order! 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 Witness, explain yourself! If this is a joke, it's the worst I've ever heard. I assure you this is no joke, Officer Marshall. Now then, please tell us what you were doing in the evidence room at the time of the crime. Olay! Please answer the question. What is he now, a bullfighter? That's alright, Officer Marshall. I believe we can figure out the rest from here. We can? Have a look at these floor plans. There is no place for someone to hide in the evidence room. Yet, Officer Meekins didn't see Officer Marshall. That's so, then. Where was the witness? It seems Mr. Wright has an answer, while he disguised himself. That's right. The only possible conclusion. Well then, let's hear it. Where was Officer Marshall at the time of the crime? Well, he was right here.
Take that!
Officer Marshall was standing right here. There. But that's where the victim, Detective Goodman, was. Correct. Unless the man wasn't Detective Goodman. I believe the victim in the video is Officer Marshall. It was you, dressed up like Detective Goodman.
Objection!
But that's preposterous. Officer Meekins witnessed the detective at the crime scene. Once he saw the man's face, he'd know for sure. But he asked for his ID.
Objection!
May I point out, though, that Officer Meekins did not know Detective Goodman. He also testified about the man's reaction when confronted. When I entered the evidence room, I asked him to show his card, sir. Yes? And how did Detective Goodman respond? Suddenly pulled a knife on me. Something about the officer's story puzzled me. If the man had his ID card, why wouldn't he just show it? Yes, he would have needed it to enter the evidence room, so he must have been carrying it. The answer is simple. He couldn't show it. As you can see, Detective Goodman's picture is on his ID card. Oh, I get it. If he showed that, his cover would have been blown. Officer Meekins would have realized the man wasn't Detective Goodman. Do you have anything to say to this, Officer Marshall? Well, I think he's too busy chewing on that jerky of his. Because I think that's what it is. You got quite an imagination, partner. We got a term for that. It's called circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence. He's still denying it. You're gonna have to do better than that to break a detective. I already did break you. Unless you have hard evidence proving I was dressed up as the victim. I can't say I particularly care for your uncooperative disposition. I can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complain. I told you, do not insult Santa's beard. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Officer Marshall dressed up as the victim? Well, am I kidding? I don't have anything like that. I can see the fear in your eyes, partner. Seems you're the one who couldn't take the desert heat. This can't be happening. It's so obvious he's the one. What can I do? It looks like your lack of experience has finally been exposed. I'll pass on to you what someone told me when I was just starting out. When you run into a wall with no place to go, return to the basics. The basics. For me, that would be what Mia used to tell me. Phoenix, try thinking outside the box. I shouldn't look for proof that Officer Marshall was in disguise. But rather, I should look for evidence that came about because he was in disguise. Why do you think this locker was opened in the first place? What do you mean? There's no reason for Officer Marshall to open his locker at the time of the crime. Yet he did, despite the chance it might be discovered later as it had been. Which means he didn't originally plan to open his locker. According to the defense's argument, Officer Jake Marshall dressed up as Detective Goodman at the time of the crime. Then, after the crime was committed, he opened his own locker for some unknown reason. The fact that a white cloth is sticking out of the locker seems to indicate that he opened it in order to put the cloth inside. So, just what exactly is this piece of cloth? Perhaps the video is the key to all our unanswered questions. I don't have any evidence, so this video is my only shot. Very well. Let's take yet another look at the security tape. After committing the crime, the witness opened the locker to put away the white cloth. Please show us why the witness had to open his locker. I think I remember what I need to do here. I need to show something that occurred during the fight that'll prove this. There, here we are. The blood stained right here.
Take that!
For some reason, you disguised yourself as Detective Goodman and entered the evidence room, though I don't know to what end. Yet. However, something unexpected happened. Officer Meekins barged in on you. When asked to show your ID card, you pulled a knife on him. However, Officer Meekins panicked, and the white coat you were wearing was soiled with blood. A bloody white coat. You couldn't just walk out like that, so you hid the coat in your locker. Not bad, partner. Gotcha. Now then, Officer Marshall, are you ready to tell us the truth? Looks like I underestimated y'all. I hope you're happy now, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, if you're only half as persistent then as you are today, we all wouldn't have to be here now would we? Officer Marshall, tell the court what you did. All of it. Alright. It seems the time has come. Marshall's confession. I had to do it that day. I couldn't just stand by and let it die. I stole the detective's ID and dressed like him. I planned to take out the evidence. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out and managed to escape. I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on the camera. There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15. So the supposed victim was really you, so there wasn't any murder. There's one thing I still don't understand. Traces of large quantity of blood were found on the floor of the evidence room. If one was murdered, then how could that be? If no one was murdered, then how could that be? Officer Meekins managed to cut his own hand. My guess is that he's the donor. It was way too much blood for such a small donation. I think we're just gonna press on everything for now. So why couldn't you let it die? When you say it, you mean... Do you even have to ask, partner? The SL9 incident. 2 years had passed since that case was closed. It was going to completely end with the transferal that day. Not if I had anything to do with it. That incident's not over. But what did she hope to accomplish by sneaking into the evidence room? When a case is closed, only that case's lead detective can look through the evidence. I wanted to have a look at it myself one more time. No matter what the cost. I don't care what anyone says, partner. That case is mine. But Officer Marshall wasn't in charge of that investigation. Why does he care so much about it? Probably because of one of the victims is related to him. Going by last names and all. That day was my last chance. That's why I stole the detective's ID and dressed it like him. I planned to take out the evidence. Why did you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman? If I didn't make it look like Goodman was carrying out the evidence transferal, I'd be arrested for stealing evidence, which wouldn't get me anywhere. So he did it to fool the security camera. And the detective's ID card? I stole that in the morning of the incident. So that really was why Goodman started filing out that lost item report. I returned his ID card. I left it on the floor in the prosecutor's office parking lot. The ID card I found was left there by Officer Marshall. So essentially, you managed to succeed despite your lack of foresight. What do you mean, partner? I mean the fingerprint-activated lock, of course. No matter how well you disguise yourself, you can't change your fingerprints. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have been able to open that locker yourself. But he could because a rubber glove just happened to get stuck in the door. That means Detective Goodman must have opened the locker before Officer Marshall. That's what it must seem like. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out. He pulled a knife on Officer Meekins and tried to drive him off. Let's just say I was a little surprised. I only planned on being in the evidence room for no more than 5 minutes. I didn't think anyone would actually come in during that short time. Officer Meekins. Certainly a one-in-a-million type person. Mistaking a detective for an intruder and demanding to be shown his ID. I'll have to think a little more about his raise next this year. Where did Edgeworth get so much influence? That's a good question. I hate to be working under the same precinct as him. Anyway, he threw himself at me, and I ended up cutting him slightly. I'm sorry it had to turn out that way. With me knocking him out and everything. By the way, what happened to your knife? Oh, you mean this one? I don't know what to say. So you knocked Officer Meekins out and managed to escape. I knew which areas would be caught on the camera. So you did your research beforehand. Those who go into the desert unprepared don't live long, partner. I didn't think it would make a difference, though. The security tape is erased every 6 hours. If all had gone as planned, no footage would have been left. However, you bloodied your coat in your struggle with Officer Meekins. If someone was in the security room when I came out, the jig would have been up. I opened my locker and stashed it in there. What was Officer Meekins doing during that time? What else? He was sleeping like a baby. So what you're saying is, on that day, there wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15. But the blood found at the scene certainly indicates a crime took place. What are you, blind? The victim showing that tape is me, and I'm not dead yet, partner. So you stole the evidence from the locker. Actually, no, I didn't. Why not? When I opened the locker, the evidence was already gone. What? Mr. Edgeworth, where is that evidence? It's still missing, Your Honor. Detective Goodman's locker was already empty. Someone else stole the evidence. Officer Marshall, may I ask you one thing? Fire away, partner. It's a free country. Just remember, I'm also free to decide whether or not to answer. Why did you do this? Stealing a detective's ID, injuring a police officer. This is no small offense. Moreover, you're an officer yourself. This will have serious consequences. It can't just be forgiven with a simple cut in salary. Not that salary cuts are ever a valid solution. Like I said, this isn't your case. This one is mine. And I'll do anything it takes to get an answer I'm satisfied with. The witness has an unusual amount of zeal. Let's hear more. I can't just forget the SL9 incident. You know why?
Hold it!
I think I do. But that case was solved 2 years ago, wasn't it? That's the reason the evidence was stored in the evidence room. Joe Dark was convicted for his crimes. One thing I can say for sure is he deserved his sentence. I remember the Joe Dark case. It involved serial murders, didn't it? I didn't intend to complain about how it turned out. But there's something that still bothers me. Something went down at that trial. Something no one will talk about. What happened? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out. Why is he so concerned with that incident? Maybe I should present him with what I think is his real reason is. I have a feeling we wind up here sooner or later. Everyone involved here is related in some way to that case. I better take another look at the files. Okay, I think I need to present the SL9 files at that last statement right there. Right here. Specifically, page 2.
Objection!
Officer Marshall, I think I understand. I think I know why you care so much about the SL9 incident. Sounds like you've been sipping too much cactus juice, partner. I have the SL9 incident file here. The name Marshall is mentioned here. In a list of murder victims. Neil Marshall. Are you related to this man? Neil Marshall? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the name. 2 years ago. He received the same lousy prosecutor award you got. What? A prosecutor? He must be talking about the King of Prosecutors Award. Now I remember. Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Prosecutor. He handled the SL9 case before I did. That's right. He was killed. And the case fell into your hands. But what's his relation to you? He was my brother. Ouch. He was investigating the murders with Damon Gant, the then Deputy Chief of Police. The group of detectives I was part of worked under them. We were desperate to prosecute the killer. What a sinister-looking fellow. Joe Dark. My brother fought Dark and was killed. That was the first time Dark left behind any evidence. That was all we needed. He was arraigned and incarcerated. The case was finally closed. At least according to the public records. What do you mean? My brother couldn't have been killed by Joe Dark. I knew my brother better than anyone. No one could have beaten him in a fight. And that's it? That's your reason for your insane actions? There's more to my brother's death than what the records say. No matter how much you try to hide it, you can't fool me. Well, at least one thing's for certain. Now we know what happened at the police department on the day of the crime. That was the last day the SL9 case could be reopened. Not satisfied with its resolution, Officer Marshall planned to steal the evidence. Disguising himself as Detective Goodman, he entered the evidence room. Officer Meekins confronted him, so he rendered him unconscious and fled. Yes, this mystery has finally been cleared up. No murder took place at the police department that day. The things that happened by chance never cease to amaze. At exactly the same time as the murder at the prosecutor's office, this fake murder was going on at the police department. Chance? It's gotta be more than just that. So if Nolan was murdered at the police department on the day of the crime, that means the murder in the prosecutor's office building lot was the real one. Which in turn means only one person committed the crime. My client, Chief Prosecutor Lana Sky.
Objection!
But wait! A verdict wasn't reached in yesterday's trial.
Objection!
Which is why we examined the incident at the police department today. But there's only one reason the defendant was not convicted yesterday. There yet remained the mystery of the simultaneous murder at the police department. It seems to me, this boy's got the draw on you, partner. All the mysteries of the police department have been resolved. No doubt about it. Our sole murder took place at the prosecutor's office. The only suspect is Lana Sky. And the testimony of one Miss Angel Star is completely incontestable. If you have a response, make it a single word or less. Objection? Gah! Gah! Ain't a word, Phoenix. I rest my case. Seems this trial has reached its conclusion. There's no room for doubt. Well done, Mr. Wright. Thanks to you, I don't need to waste my time disproving the alleged murder at the police department. There's no doubt that what I proved today is true. The apparent murder on the security camera's tape really was fake, but I didn't realize that would end up proving Lana guilty. Now then, the time for a verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant. Hold it. There it is. Hey, welcome back, kiddo. Your Honor, wait. Emma. The defense has an objection. A scientific objection. Right? What do you mean, Wright? Mr. Wright, are you this girl's guardian? Your Honor. Oh, in a sense. Please, Your Honor. All I'm asking is for a minute of your time. Please hear me out. Mr. Edgeworth, please. I don't want to leave any loose ends. But you could just stop the thing here now and win. You want a minute? I'll give you 3. I was kind of in shock. I mean, finding out the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Dark killings. Now she mentions it. The names of both both Sky sisters were in that file. That's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So I knew his fingerprints had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing. The other handprint. You mean the traces of blood found on Detective Gumshoe's locker? But no fingerprints were found on it, right? No, but I figured if I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So I ran over there and looked at it again. So did you find something? No. Well, shit. Huh? Sorry. I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all. Is that all? Please don't be mad. I'm just a high school student. And I'm just an attorney. Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have. If we can't find something wrong with them, please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional. If anyone can save Lana, it's you. Me? Oh boy. Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright. With regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain? It appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright! I'm sorry I can't be of more use. But still, if you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lana will be... Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. We don't have all day. Yes, Your Honor. If I ever needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with that handprint of Detective Gumshoe's locker? Could there be something I'm missing? I object.
Objection!
This handprint left at the crime scene clearly shows a contradiction. The only thing that seems clear is your grasping, Mr. Wright. You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Yes, this is strange. Take a good look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? You mean something hasn't been drawn on here? Yes. Something that, when drawn, will completely change the meaning of the blood mark. Let's pray defenses is simply trying to buy time. I think I know where he's going with this. He means the Blue Badger. Very well, Mr. Wright. With all this evidence here, there's gotta be something I can use. Question is, which item can prove something is missing in the floor plans? This thing! What about that piece of plywood? The Blue Badger. Mascot of the police force. Defender of truth. Guardian of proof. Explain yourself, Mr. Wright. Please look at the floor plans of the crime scene. The Blue Badger is not here. So watch what happens when we put him in. This is where he was dancing to time the crime. Well, what? That's right. So long as the Blue Badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot on the locker. What? So the bloody handprint was basically already there before the incident with Jake and Officer Meekins. So now the question is, how long has that particular bloody handprint been there? So that means, just what exactly does that mean? It means it can't be done. What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found on that locker. Don't look at me, I didn't put it there. Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically. Emma! On that afternoon, Officer Meekins was the one who brought the Blue Badger to the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would have been impossible to leave a handprint on that locker. So that means this blood mark was left there before the Blue Badger was brought in? Just one moment! I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my courtroom. I forgot what balderdash even means. It may sound far-fetched, Your Honor, but it's the only possible explanation. On February 21st, in the police department's evidence room, blood was spilt not once, but twice! But how? One time was captured on this tape, taken by a security camera. Officer Meekins cut his hand from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is, the other time. Someone bled prior to the struggle shown on this tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman, when he was really murdered.
Objection!
That's ridiculous! I refuse to accept your absurd claim.
Objection!
You're gonna accept it whether you like it to or not, Wart boy. The murder portrayed in the security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found on the locker.
Objection!
So then, assuming this murder you purport really happened, when did it take place? I demand that you show evidence that proves when it occurred. Gladly. Remember the ID card record? See this number at the very top, 77777777. This is the only number whose owner we have yet to identify, and they came into the evidence room at 4:20 p.m. before anybody else showed up. Maybe the murder occurred then. When did the first incident occur? To summarize, the defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. That's right. The blood mark on the locker proves this. Very well. Then tell us, when did this first incident occur? As Mr. Edgeworth said, proof must be presented. Proof that shows when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that. Now then, will defense please present its evidence? What shows when the first crime took place? Right here. If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the killer would have had to enter it. And in order to do so, an ID card would have been required. An ID card. Oh! The ID card record! Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at... let's see here. 4:50 p.m. If the crime took place before that time, then it would be... 40 p.m. Ah! I think you're looking at the wrong name. Miles Edgeworth! Just what have you done? I never would have figured you had the nerve, boy. Drop the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me. Nope, I ain't getting it. I'm afraid I don't understand either. It's clear from the luminol test that blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer. I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible. That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room. Let's take a look at the chart again. There's only one other card number remaining. 7777777. Talk about a lucky number. More like unlucky for when we finally identify who it is. But wait. That doesn't make sense. How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room? Since there's no record of his card being used beforehand. He must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in with 7777777. Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is 777777777. That's 17 too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card. At least at present. What? Explain yourself, son. The ID number 7777777 belongs to someone with rank of captain or higher. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. And an executive officer, eh? We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity.
Objection!
But that's ridiculous! Just how... I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge? You're all alike, aren't you? Your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates.
Objection!
I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate if you would keep your slander to yourself. Slander, is it? Okay. Let me ask a question. Yes? No, not to you. To her, the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive. Lana.
Objection!
Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course we've looked up her ID number. And it's not 7777777. Don't play me for a fool, partner. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing. About that incident. The SL9 incident. Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In that trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence? Do you need a witness to report his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At the time, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least, I did. Lana, I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law. Defendant! Just what are you saying? I think she's saying there were times when she had to act above the law in order to get the job done. I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During that trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look at me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did? Chief Prosecutor, you didn't. I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why won't you answer him? Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lana! Even if it involved forging evidence. Oh shit. See? That's what I'm talking about. No. No! Order! 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 Lana's remarks caused such a stir. The chaos in the courtroom could not be quelled. The conclusion of the trial would have to wait until the following day. Well, holy shit. Yet another case of going above the law to... Wait a minute. Well, actually, yeah, this is another case, because, I mean, I think we've kind of established throughout this whole game here that the prosecuting side, and even me at times, are kind of willing to bend the rules a little in order to deliver justice, so... But this is a pretty big one. Like, really big. So, we proved that there was. So we didn't prove, but we've opened up the strong possibility that Bruce Goodman was in fact murdered in the special evidence room, but before anybody else that day showed up for it. Specifically during 4:20 p.m. when number 7777777 went in, probably along with the detective. So we gotta now try to see if we can find any evidence tomorrow to see if we can figure out just what happened during that time, along with who that number belongs to. And on top of that, well, I guess we're gonna have to deal with a lot of drama tomorrow. After this whole thing that just got revealed. So, yeah, we gotta keep investigating tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this latest episode of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. If you did and you want to see more content from me, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'll see you all next time. Take care.